but I suppose we can go ahead and start a few minutes early because I have a lot of videos that I can show, and I think I'm going to start with.
Let's go into the stuff that we're supposed to be showing.
That's right. I'm going to start with what really was my first introduction to a video game based on an anime. This is Golgo 13, top secret episode on the NES. Listen to that noise card. Accused of a crime that he did not commit, so he goes through and solves it himself.
Yeah, he does not trust other people.
It's an interesting game where it has several different play styles. It's got a side-scrolling style where you're investigating, going through and getting attacked in the middle of the street. And when you get attacked, it moves to a first-person shooting type mode, and you have to shoot helicopters, side-eye bombing you, and everything.
And if you have to navigate a small building, it will have like a maze mode where it jumps in there like an RPG.
Yeah, similar to the original Phantasy Star game.
Yeah. And once again, it'll have the little
and that's
first person deal.
Does first person, and then at the end of every full chapter, you'll have an assassination to go through with. And
it's one of the first games to really be heavily censored when they brought it over, because there were sexual encounters, because Golgo 13 is a very sexual being. He only has two facial expressions. That's really fucking serious, or really serious and being injured.
Yes.
I mean, they made a movie in '83, The Professional, Golgo 13, and if you watch it, it is the most brilliant thing in the world. It's one of the first anime that included CG, which CG was really, really early, so you had that blocky,
really bad,
blocky stuff. But you'd see him like in bed with a woman, and his facial expression is.
Like the way Top Secret episode had it go was if he was going to spend the night with a woman, you'd see them in silhouette in a window, and then it would basically close off saying, "Oh, Duke." And, in the Japanese version, there was actually pixelated boobs.
There was a girl, she'd step out, and you'd see her breasts, and then it would have the little window scene where it would just have their silhouettes come together, and then it just fades to black.
The interesting thing is that it seemed like Nintendo themselves had a little bit of respect for Golgo 13's original material, because Golgo 13 actually doesn't get censored as much as a lot of games that came out at the time. There's things that are still in Top Secret episode that would be censored in other games at the time.
Well, Golgo 13 is a manga. I got ready to say was, but it's still currently running. It's been running since the 60s, and it's still going. You could fill this building with the volumes of Golgo 13.
It's their version of James Bond.
Exactly.
Well, to an extent, yeah.
Okay, since we went with an anime-based video game there, let's switch over to a video game-based anime, which let me find a weird one. Who remembers Parappa the Rapper for the PS1? This is the anime. Don't worry, the whole thing's not a little puppet. it was essentially a children's show, and they had a character similar to Swiper the Fox, who was always committing crimes in town, and they end up foiling his plans by accident.
Yeah, it's very much like a short, sporadic episode that they would litter between other shows.
Not most of the ones that have the raps. But it does include some characters that did not make their appearance in the games until Jammer Landing came out. So there's a little bit of symbiotic relationship there of the anime created some characters and then they ended up in the Jammer Landing game.
Pretty much the same way as some characters that were created specifically for Sonic cartoons showed up in Sonic games thereafter.
Specifically, they showed up in Sonic Spinball.
Spinball.
But that was because Spinball was made in the U.S. But not just made in the U.S., but made in the U.S. by U.S. programmers and everything. It was 100% not base Sega that made that game. But yeah, speaking of Sonic, we've got everybody knows Sonic X, of course, but then there's the Sonic the Hedgehog OVA. Which I stand by my thought that there is not a single animated form of Sonic the Hedgehog that can accurately portray the games. I mean, it takes an effort in this one, where Sonic lives in a world that's entirely floating islands, and Eggman lives on the base planet underneath all those floating islands. And that's right, Sonic's love interest is a cat girl.
Looks like she just dropped right out of an 80s anime, it really does.
Essentially, they have to go down to the planet to defeat a robot that Eggman does because it overthrew Eggman. Turns out that wasn't really what happened. Eggman's piloting that. The black Eggman in the Japanese original.
But you do get a wonderful appearance by Metal Sonic.
Yes, it's the whole plot was to get Sonic down there so that they could create Metal Sonic. And then the second OVA is Metal Sonic ruining Sonic's good name, going around and destroying the skyline.
And for those Knuckles fans, he wears a hat in this.
That is also where they got the digging for Knuckles for the Sonic Adventure games, and Knuckles' whole treasure hunter guys is because of that. He was a treasure hunter in the Sonic the Hedgehog OVA.
He's running around with those Aussie hats with the brim topped up on one side.
So they made him a treasure hunter when Sonic Adventure came around. Of course, that gave us one of the worst gameplay elements of that game, but still, it's a bit of an interesting bit. Okay, so, of course, with crossover games like Super Smash Brothers, you go into things. Everybody wants all their characters to come together, and Shonen Jump, of course, has a lot of those now.
A lot of them don't work.
They have Jump Force, which is fairly terrible. It's a poor representation of a lot of the shows.
It's supposed to be the 50th anniversary of Shonen Jump, but it is probably the worst showing of a selection of characters ever, because it just turns into what, and this is coming from me arguing this, a batch of One Piece, Dragon Ball, Naruto, and Bleach characters.
Bleach isn't that popular in Japan.
Yeah, Bleach is really not that popular.
But before that, they had J-Stars, of course, which was a better representation of Shonen Jump as a whole, but it was not as good a game.
They represented everything shy of Kinnikuman in that one.
Yeah.
And if you have a Jump collection of characters and you don't have at least Ryotsu from Kochikame and Kinnikuman, there's something desperately wrong.
And before that, of course, there was Jump Superstars and Jump Ultimate Stars on the DS. That actually got imported over here by Best Buy themselves because it was outselling games on the American charts. And
fun game.
It is a fun game. It allows you to combine the abilities of different characters in their different mangas. To where
even if a character is not a fighting type character, you will have them as either a striker or a slot that you could put in. And it was cool because the equip was a comic book page, and you just put frames from their manga on the page, and if they fit all together, it boosted your character that you were using.
Yeah, it was an interesting concept of doing a manga page as the basically your team setup, and there were other things to where, like how in the Bobobo manga you have an appearance of Yugi comes out of his head and then summons a god card. You can do that in the game if you combine their abilities, so you can have Bobobo summon him out of his head and giant attack.
And Jintoki can jump out there and do a Kamehameha wave.
Yeah.
So,
but other than those, there is what is considered the best anime crossover fighting game, and it was a Smash Brothers clone known as Battle Stadium DON. Dragon Ball Z, One Piece, and Naruto characters all in there. There is no storyline, but at the end of the game you fight the boss, which is Cell, who is the first one of the, well, you have like 10 Dragon Ball Z characters as opposed to everybody else, because you have 2 extra boss characters. That's Cell, who organizes the whole thing. He wants the tournament between all of them.
And Boo.
And Boo, who is the only character that can insta-kill you. If he zaps you, you turn into a cookie, and then if you go over and do the throw move, you'll eat them. So
and it worked differently. The life meter worked differently than Smash Brothers, because you actually could pull from behind and win the game, because every impact that you did on another character would pop these orbs out of their life meter, and as you grab them, it added to yours. So what it was kind of a tug of war to get the most orbs and then knock the last person
Yes,
out.
the way that it went was whoever had the most health at the end of the time limit, or whoever took all of everybody else's health would be the winner.
Yeah.
It gets a little bit broken sometimes if you're not careful. Cell can do an insta kill with a maximum charge Super Kamehameha, and Luffy can take out everybody's health if he manages to get to a point where Gear Second activates, which after you reach a certain amount of health, your character will enter a super mode. Luffy will go Gear Second. Most characters will just power up, and the
Goku will go Super
Saiyan.
and so on.
But when Luffy does that, his super move is Goemon no Hanabi, which is like a firework.
He'll be in the middle of a section wherever you jump to activate it, and then his arms and legs just expand in every direction at high speed for like a second or two.
You do that when he is Gear Second, it takes up almost the entire screen unless you're on a particularly large level. So if you're on the Going Merry, no one's escaping.
And if you're a One Piece fan, which is pretty neat, they had one stage which it was a mobile stage like you see in more recent Smash Brothers titles, to where the stage will move. And it was the Skypiea stage. You started off on Angel Island, then you climbed up to Upper Yard, and then up the
It went up and down Giant Jack.
Yeah, you went up and down Giant Jack until you reached the gold bell at the top.
Yeah, the stages were a true love letter to each series, because you had things like West City from Dragon Ball.
Well, Satan City at the time.
Yeah. You've got the Forest of Death from Naruto, and that's a moving stage as well. And while you're moving through that stage, Orochimaru's snakes will be coming up to attack you.
Not only that, they'll also, I think, sound nins and sand nins will show up occasionally in the background of those things.
Yeah, and much like Smash Brothers, it had a whole lot of weapons and stuff that you could pick up. You could pick up Zabuza's sword, and that was a weapon that you could use. There were
the expanding deal that would grow you, like it showed.
The power pole would show up, and you could use that.
And it actually stretched a pretty good distance.
The one major drawback with Battle Stadium DON is how you unlock characters.
Because what it did, it would slot machine, and it would give you coins. And the more coins you got, it would unlock different things, which meant the characters as well, because when you go in the roster on each one, you had to unlock the last of those rosters. Like Gara and Rock Lee were both unlocks, as well as Nami and Usopp on the One Piece side of it. And the boss characters on Dragon Ball, as well as Future Trunks, I think.
Yeah, Future Trunks and
Piccolo.
No, Gohan. Piccolo was there from the start.
Okay.
But yes, Battle Stadium DON was big for conventions as well, because when you went to a game room, now it's always Smash Brothers is the most popular thing. At that time, Battle Stadium DON was the most popular thing. And before that, the most social game in a convention atmosphere was Naruto, Dexter Ninja Tyson on the GameCube.
I thought you were going to say Bomberman on the Saturn.
No.
Hey, you can get almost 32 people on Bomberman on the Saturn.
But yes, Dexter Ninja Tyson came out over here. I don't remember what the title was, but Ninja Academy or something, I don't remember.
No, Ninja Academy was the Game Boy Advance.
Yes. Okay, but we only got 2 of them, and it was the second one and the third one. Maybe. No, it was just the first and second. And then we got the one on the Wii, which was an original one that was made for the Wii that was only in the United States. And then there were 2 more that came out from Japan, and one more that came out from here.
But it didn't stop them from adding the storyline-specific characters for one of the Wii titles to that roster for the hell of it.
But yeah, Digimon Ninja Tyson was a very simple to play fighting game, more traditional than say Smash Brothers. But as you can see, you've got physical attacks, you've got kunai attacks, and you've got throws. That's about it.
Which essentially is your basic Dragon Ball thing where you have a projectile, you have the standard attack, and then you've got a jump or something.
And every character has their own super. Digimon Ninja Tyson 4 introduced 3-man Cell, and that's the only game that had it. It was great. It had team super moves and everything. But let's move away from that. So who remembers Metabots?
I just rewatched it.
Oh yes. Could you answer me this question? What is Metabots? A video game based anime or an anime based video game?
I want to go with anime-based video.
No. Metabots.
The games were out there for a little while before.
This is the opening to Metabots. Yeah, Metarock. The original Metarock game is actually before what you saw in the anime. The anime is based on Metarock 2. And we got the remake of that on the Game Boy Advance. But yes, there are 23 Metarock games. And the first one stars Hikaru, known in the United States as Henry, who was the Phantom Renegade in later installations. Basically, he has the exact same archetype as Inky Tenryo and all his friends. He's got all of those friends. And those characters, like the Screws gang, are the parents of the Screws gang in Inky's time. And his Kirara, his partner character, is there instead of a Rico. But they've got essentially the same Metarock archetype. But there's also
There's an origin story for Mr. Referee.
Yeah, the first Metarock has the manga for the first Metarock game. That actually introduces Mr. Referee, how he is in the anime, where he shows up at every single fight.
And there's reasons.
But yeah,
I think they treated this with a lot more respect than a lot of anime that got brought over for like Saturday morning stuff.
it was a little bit weird the way they did it, but like they would have moments where it would say we're in America, and then later on you've got the World Tournament.
Well, at least they didn't go off and like Sailor Moon and say they were in some weird place, even though you could clearly see the Tokyo Tower in the background every time they walked through the streets.
Yeah. But the Metarock games, there are 23 of them. Only 9 of those are the main series entries. It's Metarock 1 through 9. 9 was released on the DS, and that was the last of the main entries. But they have continued forward. There are anime-based games in that series, where the GameCube game that actually came over here, that one was based on the series just after most of what we got, which was the one based on Metarock 3 and 4.
If they sped up the speed of that game and gave it a little tighter control, that game would have been awesome.
But there are other fighting game type spin-offs for it that play like Virtual On, and the last game that actually came out for it was on the 3DS, and it was called Metarock Girls Mission. I have to mention it because it's bizarre. Not for me. What it does not show you in this trailer is that when you defeat someone in this, their clothes explode. So it's sort of like a Senran Kagura Metarock game, but it's all like visual novel visual stuff. So you're not going to see a 3D model get through.
Not yet. Let's start Let's start something. Let's tell the company we want this game remade in 3D.
But yeah, so Metabot Girls mentioned is a spin-off of a spin-off, really, because before that there was Metabot Duel, which took the Metabot games and made it play like Virtual Woman.
Which honestly, it fits really well.
Yeah, Metabot is one of those series that legitimately competes with Pokemon in Japan. Never quite made it over here, but if you ever get a chance, the Game Boy Advance game, I highly recommend it. Not AX, Metabots, just the one that was just called Metabots over here. But yes, speaking of that, are you aware of the toy Digimon?
You know, there was even a show.
Like they beat them on. They were like little toys that shot marbles. That was their whole thing. Yeah, ball bearings and later on it was like plastic marbles though. The original series that Beat-em-on came from was Bomberman.
Yeah, if you ever find the toys for Beat-em-on, there's like this weird gaping hole. That's where a figure of Bomberman would go in. Did we see those toys with the Bomberman in last year?
Yeah. But yes, this is not a popular show, but for some reason the design for Red Bomber, which was that girl you saw right there, that shows up in a lot of things these days.
Whenever they redesign a Bomberman character, that design sticks.
For the most part. Like with Bomberman Beat-em-on, the villain character was actually Black Bomber, which heralds back to the original Bomberman game, where the villain of the game was Black Bomber, the Black Bomberman. But you've got White Bomber, Blue Bomber, and Red Bomber as the hero characters, and they basically pilot mechs, and they have power armor that they put on, and that's what the Beat-em-on toys are. The Beat-em-on toys are exclusively the mechs and the power armor that goes onto the Bomberman figure. But yeah, later on they had another Bomberman anime, which we actually got the whole game for, an anime-based video game based on
An anime.
Yeah.
Oh, you got better quality of Jetters?
Yes, I've got better quality of Jetters. But yes, Bomberman Jetters, which if you got the US version of the game, this opening was on it, but they removed the theme song.
Which they did on Rockman Execute on the GameCube.
The strangest thing about the Bomberman Jetters video game is that the storyline for Bomberman Jetters, like the show took a break for a while, and that's when they made that game. It doesn't actually fit in the storyline, even though it should. Because they kill characters in that are killed off in the anime at the exact same time, in different ways. They also they show you Mighty and you expect it to be something big in the game, but that's just something in the anime. Mighty doesn't show up in the game except in the multiplayer mode, which Mighty is the original Bomberman. And the White Bomber there is his little brother.
On the show.
Yeah.
Are we monetized now?
But yes, there's another video game based anime from around 2000 that you may remember actually coming out over here and airing on some, I think it was on ABC Family for a bit.
What is our
Not Monster Rancher. I actually don't have any
That was
clips of
actually
Monster Rancher.
syndicated, so it wasn't a specific network, but they just sold it around to like UHF channels.
But who remembers the Dreamcast? Because this is Power Stone, the anime.
I think it actually was turned
It might have been turned.
broadcast.
That's the Tokyo broadcast.
You cannot find this in Japanese and subs. They only released it over here in English.
It had one of the worst dubs. But yeah, it features all the characters from the first game. You don't get any characters from the second game that got introduced, but that game doesn't have a storyline anyway, really.
Yeah. Very arcade.
But the anime plays through the storyline of the game, despite the fact that the anime takes place in a world different from the one in the game. Because in the anime, everybody comes from a country themed like fire, earth, water, that kind of thing. But in the game, it's Earth.
Yeah.
Like, dudes from England.
It's like a steampunk Earth in the game.
Yeah.
But this was a nice Capcom game that called back to a lot of anime, the same way as Technomancer did. So where if you notice like the Asian character Super Saiyans up when he gets a power stone, and the Japanese one straight up turns into the Silver Samurai.
Yeah. Seeing as how we're touching on how anime has been kind of messed with in the United States when it gets brought over and it's video game based anime, let's talk about when they bring over an anime based video game to the United States.
What do you think this might be?
This here is Black Belt on the Sega Master System.
There you go.
I have the base version. I can actually show you both versions here. That's Black Belt. This is the Sega Ages version on the PS2, but they go to the Master System version.
You can also find it in the PS4 game.
Yeah.
You just have to go find the arcade machine.
Like there's a lot of Hokuto no Ken games actually. This is the earliest, I believe.
Yep.
And then there's the fighting game from the arcades a number of years back that was like done by the Guilty Gear crew.
Oh shit, I wish I had that.
Like that was on the PS2. You can still find it. It's not cheap, but you can find it. And let's guess on this one.
Yeah, what do you think this one is? Okay. What do you think this might be?
This is called Street Combat.
Lava 1/2.
So yeah, Ranma 1/2 had a
This totally unrecognizable dribble came from the very first Super Famicom Ranma 1/2 game.
and I think this did. When you look at the artwork, it's just how did they do it? But then you see the sprites in that. But yeah, Street Combat here was Ranma 1/2. And for comparison, I do have a clip of Hard Battle, the second Super Famicom game, which actually came out over here unaltered.
Well, except for the fact it was translated into English, but I think it was because Viz was pushing Ranma 1/2 really hard at the time, and it just helped them advertise the videos.
Yeah, the Ranma 1/2 Hard Battle, which I think shares the title with a series of the anime over here.
Well, what it was,
and
it's what they titled the third season over here, even though the entirety after the first season was just Ranma 1/2.
What was wrong what happened was anything goes martial arts.
Yeah.
Hard battle.
Well, I mean, that's the tag they put it on over here. But over there was just Ranma 1/2.
The thing that always bugged me was that the Hard Battle series of the anime didn't have that. Was nowhere near where this was. It was like, Principal Kudo doesn't show up. They talk about it one time.
I had a ball playing that game on SNES.
And
It is the only fighting game.
Huge monologue, please.
It's the only fighting game I ever got my dad to play with me.
Did you know about the homicide section?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And another Super Nintendo game, which this one didn't manage to come over, but I just love the opening. This is Lupin the Third on the Super Famicom.
It is big fun and hard as balls.
Like, it's a stealth game. Most people didn't play a stealth game until the PS1 when Metal Gear Solid came out. That's a stealth game. You're actually performing heists.
It's a platformer stealth game.
Like, they recreate a bunch of different scenes from the different Lupin the Third openings.
From series 2 specifically.
Yeah. And because I just love it, how many Berserk games are there?
What'd you say off the top of your head?
2? No, there are 3. There's the Dreamcast game called Sword of the Berserk, which came out over here without the anime having been brought over yet.
And almost the whole dub cast were the guys that used to do the old Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends and Incredible Hulk from back in the 80s.
And later on, we got the Berserk game for the Berserk Warriors game, basically. Like that came out of here. But there was one between them, and that was Berserk on the PS2, which is quite possibly the goriest game on the PS2. But this is the opening. And it shows a lot of gameplay too. So whereas Berserk, Sword of the Berserk on Dreamcast had an original story, and this one had its own story, wedged in the middle of the entire series of the show, after he rescues Costa from the Crusades or whatever. So the game starts with you fighting ghosts on the way back to your head, what's basically Gus's home, and then you have to fight Zod in front of Griffith right there, near the beginning of the game. It is by no means an easy game. And it goes from that point all the way up to the point where they first have to fight off Griffith's men, his monsters and whatnot. But right in the middle of there, you have an original storyline where you find one of the apostles or whatnot, and he's like a Mothman that can recreate dreams. So what he does is he makes you fight the entire band of the Hawks as they were when they died.
I mean, if you see it on a really good TV, you question whether it's on the PS2.
Yeah,
That's what a lot of PS2 games.
It's a pity we didn't get a lot of those titles over here. Yeah, you need to question the graphics.
and we did get Samurai Champloo,
I love that one.
but we did not get this.
Which is a name, which, by the way, was supposed to be over here, and Radio Shack got in a lot of trouble for selling pre-orders of it.
いや、俺はスパイクスにいる。
And believe it or not, this is the second Cowboy Bebop video game. The first was a shooter on the PS1.
Yeah, they recreate the entire opening for the game, and
In the game's graphics.
it's got an entirely original story where you play as every one of the characters. You play as Spike in beat-em-up style areas, shootouts, and that kind of thing. You play as Jet doing investigations, and you play as Faye for a part.
You literally go in as Edward and crack codes and puzzles.
Yeah, you actually have to hack his head, and it's very unfortunate that this didn't come out in favor of the Samurai Champloo video.
Unfortunately, there is no runner part with That would be the coolest runner for a mobile go is just episode 2 of Cowboy Bebop would be wonderful. You just play Honor.
So, who's aware of the anime Maid Guy? Anybody?
I'm in the Maid Guy.
No. Well, I'll show you a little bit of that game anyway. This was on the PSP, and it's based on Common No Maid Guy. Yeah, the artwork has boob physics. But yeah,
It's like a cross between the Dorymon games and the Battle Stadium DON. To where you actually collect Maid Guy badges.
okay. Let's look at a little bit of the in-between. So, along with video game-based anime, there are anime based on just video games in general. This is Sega Girls.
The characters are Sega game consoles. And
Dreamcast.
they actually broke the mold recently and they appear in a game themselves.
Yes, they do have their own game as well. So a little bit more of that. They have a crossover game with Hyperdimension Neptunia, and it's a full-on RPG where it's just like the regular Neptunia games, but you also have these three, and I believe it's Game Gear that's in there as well.
They actually go and they'll visit game worlds. There's an episode where they help Sonic the Hedgehog take down Dr. Eggman.
Yeah,
There's an episode with Space Channel 5 where other characters from other Sega properties show up as characters they rescue. Like Jeffrey from Virtual Fighter is just going down the hallway like this.
And there's a running
Gilius.
gag that Gilius is Sega Saturn's love.
Yeah, her true love.
Her true love is Gilius from Golden Axe. That's pretty close to being video game based anime, but it's technically not. Then there's things like Gamers here, which is basically misunderstanding the anime. You barely see them play games, but every single character in the main cast.
Everybody here should be able to pick out what they're spoofing in the opening scene.
Oh yeah. Herodias.
Smash Brothers.
Sounds great. So funny. But yeah, basically he's asked to join the gaming club in the school, and then he flat out refuses them, and because it looks like you're going to be meeting up with those characters throughout the series, but you don't. You just meet up with this group of friends. All of them are gamers in different ways. One of them's a noob. One of them really likes games but sucks at them. One of them's really good.
One of them is one of those characters that doesn't want people to know they're a gamer.
Yeah. the closeted gamer, that kind of thing.
And one of them is a guy who really, really likes games and is really, really good at it, but he hides the fact from his girlfriend.
But yeah, we can address the elephant in the room just by skipping around in this. Of course, Pokemon the anime. This is not Pokemon the anime, this is Pokemon the anime sucks. This is Pokemon Generations, which was a series of shorts that they did on YouTube. That basically acts as a sequel to Pokemon Origins, which is based on the games, actually, not based on the concept of the games.
Of illegally poaching and trafficking Pokemon. We've already executed.
But yeah, you get to see all of Generations seems like it's somehow canon to the games, and this one is actually Looker investigating Giovanni.
And a lot of them will actually be things that are explained in text files that you find in the Pokemon games. So you actually get to witness the stuff.
Who's aware that there was a Super Mario Bros. Anime? Of course. Oh no, not the cartoon. This is the anime movie, which I'm skipping. There's a lot of clips of it that are rolling around online. Not many of Luigi, which is the strangest part of it. No. Let me skip around a little bit more. We'll find Luigi.
Luigi has his original design colors too.
Yeah. It's Luigi in mustard yellow shirt and blue outfit.
But it's actually based on the original Super Mario Bros. Game.
Yeah. Luigi's original personality is in the case here, which isn't too different from his current form, except he's greedy instead of a coward.
Well, he's a bit of both, actually.
He's always going around collecting coins, which is something that comes back in Luigi's Mansion later. But yeah. That's the Super Mario Bros. Anime back from when the game originally came out. And that goes through the entire storyline of the first game, including Bowser, who can shapeshift into different things.
Yeah, which was in the manual in Japan.
And something that started this weekend in the United States as a game itself. This is the Phantasy Star Online 2 anime. The first one, not the current one.
The current one is actually based on
the actual storyline.
The actual storyline of the first part of the game.
But the interesting thing about the Phantasy Star Online 2 anime is that it's 100% canon with the game. To the point where the characters from it will show up in the game.
Yeah.
Every now and then you'll be running a mission and you'll see the characters show up and they're running through playing the
Not only
game themselves.
them, but it'll also drop characters in from the original Phantasy Star Online, the original Phantasy Star, and also any iteration like PSP games.
In episode 5, you actually get a storyline bit where the main female protagonist of this, she ends up sucked back into the game world because she was once infected with the darkness, or foul spawn as they call it over here.
Which I
Oh,
I know what. Sounds like
sounds like a ranger slur?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And of course everybody remembers this over here with its ridiculous opening theme. This is also a ridiculous opening theme, but this is the Japanese one. That's right, Kirby Right Back at You, which in Japan was straight up just called Hoshi no Kirby, which is the Japanese title of the series. But this is a strange one because unlike most things that 4Kids dubbed, they actually didn't ruin this one. Like, it's a children's show to begin with, so when they brought it over, they didn't actually have a lot of trouble with it. got that they actually did ruin is this right here. The F-Zero anime, which despite it being called F-Zero Falcon Densetsu, doesn't actually follow Captain Falcon as the main character.
That's probably because whenever he went in to sign contracts, he just good going, show me your moves. Show me your moves.
And of course, Capcom is always in the pod with them. This is, of course, Sengoku Masaru. Everybody should know this. Which a lot of people over here first saw the anime come out, and the Wii game came out over here, Sengoku Masaru 3.
No, the Wii game
The Wii game came out first, but
unfortunately, they had no basis. They weirded out everybody when they brought it over. They brought it over as Devil Kings on the PS2 and changed every character's name and tried to make them all seem like demons and crap.
The Wii game wasn't changed like that,
no, the Wii game was actually released as Sengoku Masaru 3.
Well, the Wii game was released as Sengoku Masaru Samurai Kings or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
I don't remember what it was titled, but it was the third game.
Yeah, they released it in its original form, basically.
But if you got a PS3 and you really, really love Sengoku Masaru, you can get for really decent price the first 3 games, which are Sengoku Masaru, Sengoku Masaru 2, and Sengoku Masaru 2 Heroes. And they're fantastic. You don't really need to know Japanese to really understand what's going on if you've seen the anime or anything.
Might not be able to see a lot here. Fun game. But of course, this is one of your original releases over here for a video game-based anime. Street Fighter 2, the movie.
Well, Street Fighter 2 movie is what it's called.
Which, funny story with this is there's also a video game based off of this movie, not just like the American movies game. The American movies game was still a fighting game. That one wasn't really. It was basically a full motion video game where
with sections where you would have 2D sprites and you just did the special moves.
Yeah, and you played as the robot that would copy moves from people for like one scene in the movie.
Well, you saw it in the background a few times, and then it was destroyed, and you never spoke of it again.
And another one that I have to bring up is, so much like Metarod, what would you say Digimon is? Anime or video game?
It started out as a pet thing first.
This guy right here, that's right. And actually before the first animated movie was made,
Oh yes.
But the first video game straight up on a console was called Digimon version S, which was a version of this bad boy right here on the Sega Saturns. So that predates the very first iteration of Digimon anime, making it a video game based anime. And most people do not realize that Digimon was a video game first, not anime.
And some of the games actually canon with the anime, like
all of the games.
The WonderSwan games starred the character that you met in Tamers.
At the end of Tamers, Rio, who appeared in one scene in Digimon Adventure 02, and that was a flashback to one of the games that he started. And that's just speaking canon in that way. I can't get into a full Digimon conversation, or we'll be here past the last 9 minutes that we've got, so not yet. Well, I'll probably say like 3 minutes and then we'll go ahead. But there's the Goemon anime, which came out over here a while back, and it's weird. This came out in a weird trend of video game anime being the video game character comes to the real world, and that's how they interact. This has almost an identical plot with the original Mega Man anime, where Mega Man comes out of the video game and just has fun with children.
No, it isn't Has Fun with Children. The original Mega Man anime, the kids were playing the game, and then Mega Man gets thwarted by Wily and he falls out of the TV. And then he's trapped there for a little while, and he learns about the Japanese holidays.
Yeah.
No joke. And then Dr. Wily says, oh, I'm chasing Mega Man out into the real world. He goes out there, and he's like, I'm going to ruin a Japanese holiday. That's basically the way all those Mega Man animes are.
And it would be weird of me not to show a couple of those things. If you remember Osamatsu-san a few years back, this is the original video game for the original series, Osamatsu-kun. Yeah. This is for the Sega Mega Drive, the Sega Genesis over here. And if you'll notice up in the corner, you see the number of lives. It's each one of them is your lives.
Oh. So, you have the lives like Ninja Turtles on the NES.
But then, I have to show one thing, which is now finally getting a home release, and it's getting an international home release. So, where did it go? There it is. This is the opening to Gundam Extreme versus Maxi Boost On, which is the one that is coming out soon on the PS4. Soon. But the Extreme versus games, unlike Gundam Versus, which came out over here,
It's a straight up arcade game.
yes, it's an arcade fighter. Gundam Versus was as well, but it was not quite as insane as Extreme Versus. Extreme Versus has
183 units.
183
All
units. They're all completely different characters. You have some duplicate mobile suits, but they have different pilots and different movements.
You have some duplicate pilots too, because Star Asmodee, you do have access to almost every suit that he's ever piloted.
But everything is a different movement. And it's a highly popular arcade game in Japan. But yeah, just to cut us out, this is Dorymon on the Wii.
Which is a party game.
Yeah, it's basically Mario Party with Dorymon.
Dorymon has a long history of video games.
Dorymon has been popular on a video game standpoint since the Game Boy. So they're still running because one that's actually based on Dorymon that is officially in the Harvest Moon canon, the actual Harvest Moon canon, not the title Harvest Moon.
On the Switch.
But yeah, with that we have cut everything off. I hope you enjoyed my little presentation on on what happens with anime and video games when they come together and what they're about. So yeah, we gotta get out of here.